ready, man? Party people in the place to be. It's about that time for us to. Yeah.
What's up, chiropractors? This is Dr. Silveri, your guide up the mountain to $1 million practice. If you're looking for the roadmap to grow your practice fast, then keep on listening. This is the Path to $1 Million podcast, where I chat with today's most successful practicing chiropractors. And remember, if you want to get there faster, visit getmemorenewpatients.com to find out more about Leverage Media, the most comprehensive digital marketing agency for chiropractors on the planet. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media. Welcome to another episode of Path to $1 Million podcast, Chiropractic's only daily podcast. I'm here with my buddy, Dr. Christopher Calarco from PI Expert Secrets.
Good to see you,
Good
Nick.
to see you, sir. Tell the people a little bit about who you are, where you came from, what you're doing now.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Calarco. I run a large medical network and chiropractic network that specializes on personal injury and work comp cases.
Awesome. So you are a chiropractor?
Correct.
And you went to where?
I went to National, graduated in 2010.
Nice. And then kind of give me the path of how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
Sure. So I went to open my own practice when I first graduated from school. Unfortunately, I had a house that I bought as basically an investment property that I had to short sell. So when I went to the bank to get a loan, I got denied, of course. They kind of laughed me out of there. I didn't have a lot of capital. So I met a partner of mine in Las Vegas who focused specifically.
You're from Las Vegas originally?
Correct.
And that's where the
I went
house
to
was at? Yeah.
Right. Sorry about that. Let me backtrack.
Right.
So I did go to UNLV, pre-med, and then I went back to Las Vegas where my family lives to start a practice. At that point, met a business partner who specialized in PI, asked me if I knew any physicians in the Chicagoland area. I made a trip to Chicago, and I would go back and forth every 2 weeks to kind of meet people, network, and start growing the PI portion of the practice. And in a short time, I'd say probably about 1 to 2 years later, we really had a significant number of locations, medical resources, and connections in the legal community. Also with commercial trucking companies, and we were just learning the ropes on how to really grow the PI portion of the practice.
So I just because I know the details, you skipped over a lot of things that I think are important.
Okay.
The thing that I always liked about you was, man, you were in Las Vegas. You meet your business partner. He's like, hey, you know anybody in Chicago? Because that's how he talks, right?
That is exactly that's exactly how we talk.
Hey, Christopher, you know anybody
in Chicago?
Yeah. So you just moved back to because you originally had your practice you worked in a practice that was on Michigan Avenue. So there was some reason why he thought you might know someone in Chicago.
Right. I guess I didn't want to go into a long devolved thing, but yes. But let's dive into it. So correct. So I met my business partner. I had connections in Chicago. I went to National. I really wanted to drive business to a lot of these young physicians who were just out of school. My friends. I mean, they're chiropractors. They're struggling. They're just getting into practice or associateships. They need the business. And again, I practiced on Michigan Avenue. Had made some connections. And really, when I came back here, it was about building those connections and leveraging them to grow the PI portion of the practice.
But the thing that the point that I was trying to get to was when you came back to Chicago, you were just you were grinding. You were there for 2 weeks. You were flying back and forth. You were sleeping on couches.
All right, if you want to dive into the details of details. So yes, so I was doing 2 weeks in Las Vegas where I owned a small business. I was coming back to Chicago for 2 weeks to practice and to network and market for the actual PI portion of the practice. I threw a mattress on the floor. I rented space in an area in Chicago called the Gold Coast and just went to work. I borrowed a friend's car, and we started with zero. I said, I got out. I was in massive debt from school and really wanted. I had such a strong feeling about the PI market, the work comp market, especially in Chicagoland, and I thought we could really bring value to the space because number one, it's really misunderstood, and number two, there's not a lot of resources for people who are involved in auto accidents or slip and falls or other PI or work comp cases.
Yeah. So you started with zero. In, arguably one of the top. I don't know, probably definitely the top 5 most competitive areas to build a PI.
I would agree
practice,
with that.
Right?
Correct.
Right. So you're just a nobody. You really don't have a lot of connections. You're starting from scratch.
Right.
Your partner in Vegas has a connection in Chicago with an attorney, but that's really about
That's it. And that's how it started.
And that was fine, but it's what you've built it into is because of hustle. And it's like, you are a born networker. Like, the way that we met was one of my girlfriend, who's an attorney, one of her friends that she went to law school with, just like, he didn't even understand like why we should be talking, but he was just like, you're a chiropractor and you're a chiropractor, so you guys should meet.
It was serendipity.
So we just got an email introduction. I know no one in Chicago. Like, you're literally one of like 3 friends that I have in Chicago.
I remember.
So we go to lunch, and you just start telling me about what you're doing.
Correct.
And I just thought it was amazing. But what I really like recognized with you is, for the first 30 minutes, like, you were super interested in what I had going on, and everything that I had going on was very interesting. Right?
It was.
So we didn't even get to what you're doing until, I don't know, like 40 minutes, because I like talking about myself, and so like we just like, we're going on and on about Nick, and I'm like, man, this is a great. I'm
loving this. We're
really hitting it off. Yeah. And I've watched you
do
it. I've watched you do it 1,000 times now. We just went to a networking event last week, and you're just really good at that part of it. So like, you've built what you've built in Chicago from nothing, with hardly any paid advertising. So like, we worked on full disclosure, we are partners in this course, PI Expert Secrets, where you're basically sharing all the secrets of
pulling back the curtain.
Exactly. What was the name of the webinar that we came up with? It was like
how I went from 0 to, and it's very like on the on the money here, how I went from 0 to 120 new PI cases per month, using less than $5,000 a month in marketing.
No. It was less than 5 years, with less than $1,000 per month in marketing. Because
correct.
Averaged out over the year. Right. Now you might be spending.
Now we're spending a little,
but in the beginning you were spending.
No,
nothing.
You're absolutely right. It was less than 1,000, because we were spending literally nothing.
Yeah,
like, it was all sweat equity. It was all hustle. It was all about that face-to-face interaction. Correct.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, the 2 things I want to talk about today, and we'll kind of like wrap it in the pillars of the course, and then just sharing some value with the listeners of like your real world experience and what you're doing right now. This isn't like you built this thing and then you sold it and now you're going to tell everybody what you're doing. Like, you're actively in it. Like, you're trying to double it in the next 5 years.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We just did an event the other night. I mean, we're always, I'm going to be looking at notes right after this. Like, we are in the grind.
And the best part about what you're doing, just because I have knowledge into like what you guys are doing, is that as you get more successful at it and you get better at it, it becomes easier. Now it's like, instead of you needing something from them, like, you're bringing a lot to the table because of your expertise, your network, your connections, and it's like you just keep expanding and expanding. Like, when the other day when I was like listening to you talk to these attorneys, because it was a bar association event, and you were talking to these guys, and it's like they were excited to be talking to you.
Because, again, you have to flip it. You're the one with the leverage. If you're a practitioner in the space and you know what you're doing, you are bringing a massive amount of credibility and resources to them. Yeah. The patients are in desperate need of treatment. If you're in a state that treats on a lien, they need treatment on a lien, and they need somebody who knows what they're doing. I mean, there could be massive financial repercussions for cases that are not done properly.
So everybody is always, people ask me all the time, like, do you do marketing for PI? Mm-hmm. They always want the silver bullet. They always want, like, I'll give you the money, you give me the cases. And I'm like, it just doesn't really. It may work for a little while. Like, you might find something that works.
Yeah, but you're scratching the surface.
Yeah, you're never going to get to the point where you're never going to bring in enough unattached cases. Unattached meaning they don't have an attorney already. You're never going to bring in enough unattached cases to be able to feed the attorneys to where they're gonna like be super excited.
No, that's and that's a big misconception. Like, oh, you got to feed these attorneys a lot of business. No, first of all, you're gonna get a lot of the PI referrals from many different places, not only the legal community. Number one, number two, you don't have to feed them. And any attorney that tells you like, oh, we're gonna do a 1 for 3 or some like arbitrary random number, it's just not accurate. Right. If you have somebody that needs representation, you get them to the firm that that's gonna treat them the right way. Yeah. And again, that's a cherry on top. The real leverage, the real power comes in the fact that you know what you're doing, you know about case management, you know about documentation, and you know how to network with medical providers, you understand evidence-based guidelines, etc.
So what a great segue into the 3 pillars of the course. So the things that we're talking about in the course are going to be how to manage the case.
Correct.
How to document, and then the marketing aspect of it, and a lot of like networking and connecting.
Those are the three general pillars. Then we do a deep dive. I mean, we've been working on this content for over a year.
Yeah. So let's start with the case management side. So let's imagine that there's a chiropractor out there, whether they're new in practice or they've been in practice for a while. It's like they want to do more PI. They know that those people need help. They know that those cases, it's like, it's the last bastion of like you actually get paid what you bill a lot of times. And I want to give them a lot of value of like, what is it that you think about that allows you to get so many cases per month, mainly through your network and through referrals into you. Like every time we meet, it's like your phone is nonstop going off. Both phones. And half the time it is, hey, I got a new case for you. Hey, I got a new case for you. Because I can always tell the difference between like your team calling and like an attorney calling with a new case.
Full disclosure, we've been in the car before and the phone is wrong.
Correct. It's like bad phone. Right. Like, oh, new case? Okay, let me get on that. If it's like some annoying client that
it definitely did not start off like that, but that's where we are now. And again, hard work, persistence, and knowing the space. So let's
give lots of value to the listeners. So let's start with case management. All right. So case management, I think, is where it all comes down to.
Okay.
Like you've got to know how to like handle that. So give me the biggest things starting off of like when you intake a new PI patient, when you intake them, what are you thinking about? What are you making sure of? And then we can start going through like the process.
All right, so I'll jump into intake in a second. I think case management generally can be broken into two components, and that's going to be treatment and communication. Communication with any kind of the medical providers if you're co-managing the case, and then communication if the patient has an attorney with the legal community. Yeah. So, and then when it comes to intake, you need to be flexible, but at the same time know what you're looking for. So you don't want to turn anybody away. If somebody, let's say, is malingering or you have some weird thing going on, of course you're not going to treat that patient. But for the most part, most of the patients that come through your door when you're doing the intake are going to be referral based. Either you got them from a legal resource, you got them from online marketing, and you're really going to do medical. Thank you, I forgot about that component. And you're really going to do kind of a deep dive into that case. You want to know when the initial date of injury was, what are the accident specifics, have they had any treatment, and then there's so much to discuss here. So
no, I know, but like you've got we don't have to go into like all of the details of like what you do on day one, but I mean more of like how are you, like when you bring them in, let's say an attorney refers them in.
Okay.
Like you kind of kick into gear.
Let's narrow it down.
Yeah, like new case, like attorney just got it. They're like, you're their guy.
Got it.
They call you and they're just like, hey, I got Bob Jones. He was just in an accident. I'm gonna send him over to you. Because you work a lot with medical, you work a lot with imaging. You make sure that you always call it the medical algorithm, that you're using like the medical algorithm to make sure that you're not going to ruin a case. Because what a lot of chiropractors do is they like want to hold. It's like my precious, they get that PI case and they don't want to like
that
anyone.
Is the biggest pitfall. Like,
so
you cannot do that.
So you start right away working with a PCP, somebody that. So again, the reason why the attorneys are referring into you is because they know that you're going to make sure that they
because we play well with others. Like we do what's best for the patient. We use evidence-based practices. Initially, yes, like somebody might have the need for simple medications, or they might have red flag findings. They might have severe pain that warrants imaging right away. The bottom line is you're getting them to that medical provider immediately. Some cases don't need that, so it's basically going to fall on a bell curve. Some are going to be more severe, some are going to be less severe. Yeah. And then when it comes to again the re-exams, that's going to be another important part of the treatment process, where you're doing an evaluation. You're seeing has that person made significant improvement? Do they need to go see a medical provider?
How often are you doing re-exams?
Re-exams have to be done every 8 to 12 weeks. I would say 8 to 12 visits, 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. Everybody's got their own kind of protocol, but around that time frame, it needs to be done. I will say as a caveat, depending on the DOI, so the date of the injury, like if somebody got injured in, let's say, an auto accident 2 months ago, and and they saw you for their initial, 2 months later. Really, I mean, at that point, if they're in a severe amount of pain, you shouldn't just be doing conservative care. Right. X-ray at the bare minimum, but more than likely, based on spinal or extra spinal pathology, you're more than likely sending out for diagnostic imaging plus co-managing that case.
Got it. So, how much are you communicating back with the attorney
Crucial all the time.
Like how often?
Often. So there's going to be definitely key spots that you want to communicate on. If, let's say, whether the attorney refers it over or whether the patient is represented by an attorney and the patient calls you directly, because you get them all different ways.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that that initial appointment you're confirming with the law firm is scheduled, so they know that their client's going to get what they need when it comes to treatment.
Yeah.
You want to confirm all the details on that case. So when they came in for the initial, if they made the initial, any issues with compliance, any need for, again, diagnostic testing or specialist consultations.
Yeah.
And then at the re-exam point, a lot of attorneys don't want notes throughout the case. They just want the initial note. So in some states, they can look into the policy limits, and then they want the final. But what they really want to know is if there's any issues, if there's any malingering, if there's any kind of issues with compliance, if, maybe the client's going to switch law firms. Maybe they're having an issue with communication with the law firm.
Yeah.
It's your job to treat and then to also put out all the fires that could pop up.
And if you could, because they may confide in you something that they aren't confiding
all the
in
time.
their attorney,
right?
And if if you can try to help save a case for the attorney
Huge.
that's about to walk out the door,
Right.
that's a big win for them, and they're obviously going to appreciate it, because it's like you want to be on the team. You want to be seen as like a team player, as opposed to like you're just in it for yourself.
A team player, and a lot of times, there's miscommunications. Maybe the attorney, for whatever reason, was unavailable for 2 days, and the client gets mad. I mean, we deal with it all the time in healthcare. You get it. I mean, it's just the population in general. So a lot of times they're not real significant issues, but they are things that, look, the person just wants to be heard, and you want to get them addressed.
Speaking of the population in general, PI cases are notoriously not the most compliant patients in the world. Give me some tips on how you can handle that on the front end that helps with some of those issues going forward, and then what you do with it when they start to become an issue.
So I'm not going to say that that's a misnomer, but I think there's general non-compliance throughout the population. I'd say 15 to 20%, and I don't, it seems like that would be the average too, in your standard practice, are non-compliant. I mean, we have the numbers to back that up. So the bottom line is you're going to have a frank conversation with that person. It always goes back to how it's going to affect the treatment outcomes, and then you discuss how the treatment outcomes are going to affect the legal outcomes. Those things go hand in hand. The better treatment, the more documented treatment, and the more consistent treatment is going to lead to better legal outcomes. If somebody isn't compliant, again, you're going to have that conversation directly, or your team is with that patient. You're also going to notify, if they're represented by an attorney, the law firm, so that everybody's having a conversation and kind of having like a come to Jesus moment with that patient to prevent any issues down the line. Small gaps can be explained. People travel. Maybe there's a front end gap in care. A lot of times people don't want to admit, that they were hurt. A couple days, even a couple weeks isn't bad, as long as it can be explained in the notes, and any good attorney can argue, hey, look, this person was scared. They were scared about the financial ramifications, but they were in such bad shape at that point, they had to get in for treatment. So
what about the how non-compliant do they have to be before you get to the come to Jesus?
So right away, 2 visits, we're having a conversation with them.
If they miss
2 in a row,
visits.
2 in a row, or they consistently reschedule. You can tell when somebody's serious or not, and I think it's important to kind of jump on that right away, because you have the conversation and you're like, look, you're like a parent who's teaching their kid, hey, this is unacceptable behavior. This is how things need to be. You are setting the tone, and then you're having a conversation with the attorney to do the same. They can discuss really the legal ramifications that they're going to deal with, and the fact they may drop that case, and if they don't have insurance, how are they going to get treated if they don't pay out of pocket?
Right.
So it's a situation that really needs to be addressed.
Okay. So another part of case management, let's say we get to a point where it's just like they're just not getting any better. Like you're referring out at that point to ortho, imaging. You're trying to get them to the place that, like you work quite a bit with like the medical community. I guess we'll do like an example case. So let's say initially you didn't have the medical consult, there was no need for simple meds. Let's say the patient denied the medical consult, just wants to see you as the chiropractor. It's let's say spinal pathology. Great. You treat that person, 8 to 12 visits, 3 to 4 weeks. They're not getting any better. Again, you're pulling the trigger on specific imaging, whether it's MRI, CT. Mainly it's going to be MRI. Could do EMG, NCV for like specific, upper and lower extremity kind of neurologic issues. But let's just say an MRI, it comes back, whether positive or negative. I mean, let's say it comes back positive for pathology. Even negative with severe pain levels, you'd still refer out to pain management in this case. So it comes back positive. They have some disc pathology, maybe facet joint syndrome, whatever it may be. You're going to send to pain management. They're going to start working on that case.
their treatments, whether it's ESI, facet joint injections, Medrol dose packs, etc., are going to really work well and allow for more aggressive therapy on your side. The pain management treatments are really not standalone. They have to get chiro or therapy when they're seeing the pain management specialist.
Right.
Now, severity levels, if for some reason that's not working after they're intervening and with your treatment they're still in severe pain levels, that's when you send out to the big boys. That's when it's neurosurgeon, orthopedic surgeon, you see what they say. They're going to make specific recommendations, and it might be like, look, this is not a surgical case, we need to continue. And then you're going to start kind of playing with treatment modalities until you not only nail down the pain generator, but really make a big outcome in how they're feeling.
Okay. So the last part of case management that I can think of, maybe there's something that I'm missing here, but when it comes time to settle the case, so you're working with attorneys quite a bit. What's kind of the formula that you use, or what are you looking for when they're asking you to take a reduction? Like, how are you deciding on how to work
so
with
this
that?
is going to be a state-specific question. So I will say in Illinois there are lien laws, so you know what the percentages are, right? It's a third, a third, a third, unless you have a hospital involved. There's a difference between like a hospital and then a private, medical provider. Otherwise, it could jump up to 40%, which is 20 equals 40, and then the rest is divided up between the patient and the attorney. So, I mean, you need to be realistic. I think a lot of times doctors get so frustrated, and I hear it all the time. They're like, this blank attorney, and they're super upset. And it's like, well, did you crunch the numbers? Did you realize like what this settled for? Did you get a statement from and the attorney should be providing a statement.
That's what I'm saying. What should, like, okay, so let's say you're just, regular chiropractor and, in Nebraska, and the attorney calls and is like, hey, that bill for $5,000, can you take two? What do you need from the attorney to like make the decision on that?
I think number one, you should vet them on the front end to make sure they're reputable. The attorneys you're working with, and if you cannot, I'll get into that. Okay. And if you can't do that, and you don't have the ability to do that, no matter who the attorney is, you want to make sure that you're getting a sheet breakdown of everything, total medicals, what the case settled for, and if you have again like a state-specific law that gives you the percentages that you're going to take from that case, it's simple math. So for us, I mean, every single time we can do the math, it's always going to hit that number or very near that number. You might occasionally get an attorney who calls and is like, hey, this client's really difficult. Could you take an extra $400 off for me? And I'm, of course, like happy to do that because again, it's a long-term game.
When you're in the relationship business, like because this is just one
Nick,
case.
That is such a good point. So many times I see like they're trying to get people, doctors, chiropractors, are trying to get that short-term win, and they destroy their long-term business. So for like $300 or $500, you're literally yelling at attorney, upset. And they're in the right. I'm not saying they all are, because there's some definite people out there who take advantage. But if you are a practitioner and you understand what the settlement is and what the state laws are, you're in a place of power, and you're able to communicate that properly to the attorney. And you want to have the long-term relationship because it will lead to more business in the future.
When they ask you to take like a big cut, and like maybe it falls within the lien law, and that's one thing is like, make sure that you know the lien law.
Have to know your state laws.
Every word of that lien law, because attorneys just assume that chiropractors don't know it.
Absolutely.
And they will take advantage.
I get phone calls from chiropractors every day.
It's not this. Like with you, it's like they know So
no,
they
we're good.
You don't get it a lot. But like when I was new in practice, I mean, they were just every chance they got.
Attorneys are always looking for the best way to kind of represent their clients, and if they don't have a relationship with you as the physician, they're going to look for ways to leverage
that networking event that we went to last week. I met, like, we were talking to an attorney, and I was talking to him about like liens, and I said something about like, oh, I love PI because like we actually get paid like our full bill, and he almost like laughed at me. He's like, I never pay the full bill to a chiropractor. And I think he said medical, but I was just like, well, I mean, like, I get it. He's like, there's a lien law. And I was like, no, I get that, but like if it settles for $25,000 and my bill's $5,000, like I want to get paid my full bill. And he's like, I still wouldn't pay your full bill.
Yeah, but that's the point.
You know,
and once you build a rapport and relationship with them,
Yeah.
and you know the numbers, that probably wouldn't happen. So for
but
us
most of
in
them
Illinois,
most of them don't have relationships.
they don't. But
with
that's
the
what I'm trying to
attorneys.
double down on that point,
Yeah,
though, because
yeah.
again, I think it's a long-term perspective, and you can build that relationship over time.
Yeah.
And then when they see your name on that case or your clinic on that case, they are less likely to try to take advantage.
Yeah. So, but I guess the most of the people that are listening aren't going to have a lot of relationships with attorneys. So when they do try to take advantage, you want a statement sheet with everything broken down.
Statement sheet with all the medicals, and you just need
percentage.
to know the percentages. So what's the total medical? What's the settlement? What are the percentages of everybody on the case? Maybe it's just you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you, the hospital, EMS, and
Yeah.
a pain management physician, and an imaging center.
Yeah.
So what percentage, like in Illinois, what percentage of the case of medical is yours, and then what's going to be the total reduction, and then what percentage of that total medical is going to be paid out to you?
Do you ever ask if the attorney's taking a
Always.
cut if they're
A lot of
asking
times
you to
they'll
take a
tell
cut?
us, but if they don't tell us, you should definitely ask.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm always.
But again, the numbers kind of, you can tell. If you have what the settlement is and you know exactly what's
Yeah.
going on, a lot of times, and there's no way to really check this, but they will say I'm giving more to the actual client or the patient,
Yeah.
which is fine. And again, that's normally a very small amount, so
Yeah.
it's not really skewed that much as far as percentages.
My thing is like I'm always, if you're asking me to take, because I don't like to take less than 80%, really. And if you're asking me
Nobody
to take,
likes, right.
that?
Nobody
But-
likes to take less.
Yeah, but if you're asking me to take 60, like, all right, what are you
Oh,
cutting?
100%.
What's the because I'm all like, what's the patient gonna?
That's
cut?
where the statement comes in.
I know,
right.
But I'm saying like I'm not like I get what the lien law is, but the lien law is like this is what you have to pay me, but I can balance bill the patient
That's
if
not a
I
good
want
idea.
to.
Right.
What's that?
I don't think that's a good idea.
It's not if you like for the relationship, but I'm
Right.
saying like I don't want to have to do that, but I also don't think it's fair that like you're not going to take anything off, the patient's not going to give up a dollar.
Yeah, everybody,
You know what I mean?
again, I 100% agree with you. And if you're
This is just me like
No, and I'm
being
with you.
like proud. You're like actually teaching them how to do it like the long term
this is
way.
me being, this is my ego.
this
I
is
will
me
take
being
this
an
amount.
idiot, yeah,
I will not
yeah.
take under 80%.
I know what the right answer is, but doesn't mean I'm happy about it.
No, and it's really important because again, you guys should all, and when I say you guys, like you and the attorney should be working together for the best outcomes for the patient, medically and legally. Period.
Yeah.
And if you're working with a reputable attorney, they're going to be happy to be transparent. There's no reason not to be
Right.
transparent.
So I could talk about this case management stuff all day long, but let's move on to documentation. So pillar 2, documentation. So what are the things that they, in a PI case, may be a little bit, I guess they just need to be a little bit more, not careful, but just, you tell me about like the documentation of a PI case.
Yeah, the
What are
documentation. So you're going to
specifics?
go through, you're going to do your normal exam, right? That's fantastic. However, when you're doing PI, you got to focus on specific things. There's a whole list of questions you need to ask when they first walk in. And I mean get into the nitty gritty of everything. You're not an accident reconstruction specialist. At the same time, you should be given details about the accident, which way they were traveling, what do they think their speed was,
Right.
did the car hit specific things, did it hit other cars, etc.
Yeah.
Then you got to really, especially at the initial visit, start tweezing out all that important information. Everything. Did they lose consciousness? Did their hands hit anything because they were flailing?
Yeah.
Did they hit their head on anything? Were they bleeding? Was there bruising? And you go through. I have a laundry list of probably about 100 questions that you need to ask. But generally, what you really need to do is focus on the fact that number one, the patient may not tell you everything. Don't leave it to them. Ask the question and make them answer it. Yeah. And then number two, you have got to be detailed in your approach. You have to understand that if this case goes to deposition, if it goes to trial, and even if it doesn't, you're going to have opposite side counsel going through these notes with a fine-tooth comb, looking for weaknesses, probing for weaknesses. And if you don't mention some pathology that was there post-accident caused from the accident, and then you mention it 4 weeks later, because you just failed to ask or really tweeze it out of the patient. And like, oh yeah, I did hit my head. And oh yeah, I was feeling dizzy the next day. Yeah. They're going to completely deny payment and the fact that was related to the accident. And you don't want that. It's going to affect the legal outcomes, the payment outcomes, and potentially future patient care.
Yeah. So what do you need to get from the patient, like on a daily visit, that's really important in terms of documentation?
Yeah, so not speaking about the initial, but the daily visit, what you really want to get from
the initial
them,
is super important.
The initial is crazy important, but with a focus right now on the daily visit that we're discussing, what you want to really do is jump into ADLs. Basically how you want to tell the story. How is the accident affecting the patient's life? How is it affecting their work? Did they have to take time off work? If so, what was their lost wages potentially? How it affected their family? Even details like how many kids do they have? What are they not able to do with their kids? You want to humanize the case. You want to humanize that person to, kind of like an adjuster, robot-like adjuster who's just going through and doing this every single day, who really doesn't see the humanity sometimes in some of these cases.
Well, these guys are, I mean, the adjusters themselves are like the computer tells them what a case should be worth. And,
Correct.
And I heard this somewhere, maybe it was in like one of these groups I'm in, but the adjusters are bonused on any time they can settle a case below what the computer number says.
True.
And if your documentation sucks, the attorney can look at the documentation. They can tell whether it's good or it's bad.
Oh, yeah.
And so can the adjuster.
They do this all day.
Here's the thing with PI, especially with chiropractic, is a lot of practices it's like 1, 5, 3, 7% of their practice, right? In terms of like their volume. It's not something you do every day. These attorneys and these adjusters
every day.
Do it all day, every day. And it's like the patients that get into the accident, it's like could be the first accident they've ever been in.
Right.
So they are at a disadvantage. That's why it's good to send them to an attorney so that they at least have somebody on their team
who knows
that
the space
does this. Because once the attorney gets involved, the adjuster is just like, okay, I can't like take advantage anymore.
Right.
We
see that every single day.
Right. So my point is that with chiropractors think, all right, well, I'm doing my notes. I'm doing like what I would do for like my Blue Cross Blue Shield patient. And they send it to people that look at these every day. And as soon as that adjuster sees like
chink in the armor,
ooh, you don't know what you're doing.
Nope.
Take advantage.
And
as soon as we'll talk about this at the networking part, but as soon as that attorney sees that too,
they're like,
it's like they're not going to call you and like yell at you about bad notes. They're just not going to send you the next one.
They're not going to think about you as a resource, and
right. I mean, you're just not an expert.
You're not an expert.
Yeah,
you're not a practitioner in this space.
Expert secrets.
Exactly.
Right. So
you have to learn what to do and not to do.
That's right. And then on the re-exam piece, I basically redoing the initial exam, checking in on anything.
Yeah, you want to go back to all the ADLs. Again, the work issues, anything that was checked. You want to follow up on. 8 to 12 visits again, 3 to 4 weeks. It's going to be really important that you send those notes over to the attorney. And the re-exams are going to be, every exam is obviously extremely important, but the re-exam specifically, especially the first one, is going to be a key point where it comes to specialist consults, diagnostic imaging, etc.
Gotcha. And then when you're ready to release a patient, that exit exam.
Follow up on everything that you did. Make sure that when you're saying MMI, if they are at MMI, you're saying MMI with chiropractic care, and you're saying MMI with chiropractic care at a specific region, because you don't want to just be like, they're generally MMI. It makes no sense.
They're perfect.
It all goes back, because they still might be getting medical treatment or treatment elsewhere with other healthcare providers. It just all goes back again to being specific, being detailed, tweezing out each one of the injuries, and documenting and properly closing out each one of the injuries. And if the injury is still there, you have to say that.
Right. But if they've just kind of plateaued with you.
They might have plateaued with you, and that happens sometimes.
Yeah. And then getting it back to this is where the attorney really wants to. They kind of want the beginning and the end, the bookend.
Yeah,
piece, right?
I will say vast majority, 90%, just want the bookends. They want the beginning and the end. Again, in the beginning to look into some of the policy limit stuff and to know exactly what's going on, what the treatment recommendations are. They want to be updated throughout the case, like, hey, you know what, this person needs this, and you should be doing that always. Whether it's, hey, the orthopedic physician thinks they need this MRI, you need to be your team. This is how you really stand out in the space. Your team or you is communicating, hey, had an ortho visit, here's what they think. Hey, had a pain management visit, here's what they think. If you should be getting those notes, and you're sending those over to the firms as well. So you're bottlenecking everything through you, and this person is like, wow, this doctor is like on it. It's like my own paralegal almost. So it works out fantastic. It saves them a lot of time, energy, and effort. They know exactly where their case is going.
Got it. All right, so next is going to be what everybody has been waiting for: networking, marketing. Like, how do we get more cases, right? So all the things we just talked about are basically the foundation to be able to make your networking successful. Because we just did a video recently, or you did a video, where you were talking about getting ghosted by a PI attorney, right?
Right.
So I find that happens a lot when I talk to people about PI. where, you know, they do the thing, they like reach out to them, they send the letter, they send the email, they meet them at networking, and they'll send them a test case. They send them the test case, then they never hear from them again. So why does that happen? How do we avoid that? And then we'll get into like some tactics on how to do better in terms of the marketing of it.
First of all, I mean, when you start out, that might happen a lot. As you get more experience in the space, again, you learn the lessons, you become a practitioner, it happens less and less. I will say now, very recently, especially for us, that has not happened. Yeah. But when you're first starting out, it's going to happen. The main thing is when they do send you that test case, it goes back to the fundamentals. You have to be a practitioner. You have to understand case management. You have to understand case building. And you really need to understand how important documentation is and working with medical providers when needed.
Yeah. So the way to keep from getting ghosted is everything we just talked about.
Yeah.
So what are the things that are making you so successful, especially when you started out? Let's not talk about now that you're the biggest deal, you know, in Chicago, but like when you were sleeping on the couch and you were starting at zero, like where did that, what were the things that you were really thinking about? There was no marketing budget.
No marketing budget. I think just being genuine, like genuinely caring about people, genuinely interested in people, genuinely trying to, you know, grow our position in this space and being a fantastic resource. Also, I mean, in your city, there is a massive need for what you're doing. Yep. I mean, a lot of PI patients can be underinsured, have no insurance, and may not get the treatment unless you're there to provide it. And it's got to be quality treatment, quality documentation, all the things we go back to is how you kind of keep the business coming through the doors.
But like, how do we start though? Like, it's great to be like, passionate about it and all, but like, how do you get the meetings?
I think that's the fundamental, you know, aspects, and you have to communicate that when you are in the meetings, and then how to actually get the meetings. I mean, you're just going to go out, let's say, you know who the big firms are in your specific city. I mean, they have billboards, they have commercials, they have everything else. What I would really do though is do a Google search, maybe, you know, lawyer X in your area, let's say. Maybe create a list of the top 15 to 20, start reaching out to them via email, introduce yourself, and really you want to focus on the fact that you understand PI, that you, if you're in a state that accepts liens, work on liens, that you understand reductions. There's a couple key things you want to hit, and that's it. PI, work on liens of potential, understand reductions, understand depositions, and really know how to work out that case and build that case properly. Then you want to make sure that you're getting tapped into the right networks. So if you're, like, we just went to that Chicago Bar Association event. Fantastic event. You have to get tapped into the legal community. They can be a massive resource when it comes to sending new PI patients through the door. And then you kind of need to think outside the box too. You're not going to have a lot of money in the beginning potentially to do, you know, pre-roll YouTube and Google ads and stuff. Maybe you do. And you can do that on a smaller scale. But I think you're going to get the most bang for your buck with the person-to-person introductions, whether that's you, whether that's a marketing rep getting into the law firms, but also other spaces. The medical providers are going to be a massive resource for personal injury, and you're not only growing the personal injury side of your practice when you're networking with them. Like we get health-based insurance referrals all the time, and you really build a rapport with these physicians. Then you start networking with them. You meet new physicians, you know, different specialties, and it just starts to snowball. The same thing happens in the legal community. And then again, I'd focus on simple things like ride sharing, commercial trucking companies, delivery services, anywhere where you think there could be personal injury patients, and the only thing you're trying to do is communicate your value and that you're there to help.
Let's talk about the PI attorneys. You know, going to where they're already at is always a good idea, but a lot of chiropractors don't really know where that's at, or are they allowed to go? Or I mean, we were at a bar association. We might have been the only two non-attorneys, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I think again that comes back to understanding the space, and you really need to do your due diligence and research. So there are some sponsorship opportunities at a low price point. Even if you can't sponsor the specific event, you can always put on an event for CEs. A lot of times people, I shouldn't say people, the legal community may be looking for speakers, especially when it comes to PI. You could be an expert when it comes to the treatment of PI. That is no cost. It's only going to take time, and it's going to bring a lot of value and awareness to you, and brand awareness specifically. There's just a lot of different ways that you can network in that space.
Nice. So the in terms of the CE, I always like that idea because now you're like adding value to it. So you've put those on.
So I think there's two things we should focus on. One is you can be a speaker, which is going to be a very low price point. Number two, and it could still be a very low price point, you actually put on the CE event. If you can get some sponsors involved, you can do all the work, put in all the sweat equity, have your team do it, set it up. partner with, you know, the Women's Bar Association of Arkansas or whatever it may be. And then you have a panel of professionals in the space. Like for ours, we had a judge, we had 3 or 4 attorneys that were in different areas, and the whole topic on that CE credit was how new attorneys can grow their injury practice for PI cases specifically. So now you have all the PI attorneys in a room. You're also on the panel discussing maybe the medical aspects, or maybe you're just the host. You don't have to be on the panel. And if you leveraged it properly and got the right sponsorship, it could cost you $0.
Nice. And that Women Bars Association of Arkansas is a really
fantastic.
Good chapter.
I've heard it's amazing.
It's a really good chapter. So I love the CE thing because you're starting to create value for people.
That's it.
How do you're really good at just like reaching out to people. So like you're like, okay, like look up who the PI people are in the space. What have been the best ways that you've like reached out to individuals?
Yeah, just transparency. I think transparency's got to be there, and again, hit those key points. And the best actual like avenues to do that have been just email. Again, doing research. I think it's much easier when you can do it cold, like if you don't know somebody. But I think it's much easier when you try to network or meet somebody, build a bridge. I think that's always, you know, it kind of sets you apart from somebody else who's just emailing for business. And then if you have the social platforms, which you should, you know, for your clinic, I think it's really important. LinkedIn's been massive. Instagram actually has been massive. And even if a lot of the firms don't do Instagram themselves, they have somebody and the marketing rep doesn't know, and they're like, oh, this seems like it would be fantastic. You know, or a lot of times it's somebody in the law firm, you know, maybe an intern or a paralegal that's handling their social. Actually, that's the way it is a lot of times. And they're like, this sounds like a fantastic resource. Let me introduce you or set up a lunch for, or give your information to, you know, one of the partners.
You know, you guys, as listeners, you guys should be thinking about, like, you're on the other side of it in a situation that I know a lot about, which is, you know, digital marketers all want to be friends with chiropractors on Facebook, because once you're friends with them, now you can just post for free on your page about like all these great results you're getting, and then the chiropractors just see it. Now, if you got into that game about 18 months ago, you had a lot more success then, before chiropractors got wise to like every digital marketer on the planet trying to be their friend. But you could do the same thing with attorneys. Like if you can become
wide open,
and it's with a local business, it is so easy to, even like a big firm, they like just put all of the people that work there on their website. You can be friends with the paralegal. You can be friends with you can follow them on Instagram. You can start to like find out more about what it is that they're interested in. If you know somebody is interested in the Dallas Cowboys and they're the main PI guy, and they post something and you follow them on Instagram or you're friends with them on Facebook, and you start to comment on that, everybody looks at who likes their post. Absolutely. And who especially like some 50-year-old attorney that gets like 3 likes and 2 comments on every post. If you're like 20% of his comments and likes, all of a sudden you're just like, who's this guy?
That, and you know, that's a really good point. And I think the other point we got to mention is, you don't know how many times you reach out on the social platforms, and it's not the partner, it's not one of the attorneys, it's somebody in the office who's like, hey, oh wow, I actually have back pain or neck pain or this, and it's like, hey, come into the clinic. They come into the clinic, it's free marketing, they meet you, they get treated, they love the staff, and then guess who they're telling? Everybody in the firm.
And again, that $0.
$0.
Like everything that
you can spend 20 minutes every morning and just get it done.
See, my problem is I always want to throw money at a problem. You are like, how can I do this for as little marketing budget as possible? Just because that's how we started. Right. And it's like it's like ingrained in you now, even now that you
I
have
actually
the
never
money
noticed it until you just said that. So okay.
But it's good because like, you know, when you have lots of money, it's easy to like think that just like the money side of it will take care of it, and like let's just throw it at Google Ads, or let's throw it at YouTube, or let's do Facebook ads, or whatever you think the vehicle is. But really, like, you could just be spending your time and your energy building these relationships to where now all of a sudden you've got a chance of like connecting on a human level, which is going to get you that meeting. Now again, you have to have that's only going to get your foot in the door.
Right. Initially.
Once your foot's in the door,
that's short term.
And you can't. There's only, in a smaller town like I'm, you know, in Springfield, 100,000 people. You only get so many at bats. Like they're not going to give you like multiple chances to like prove yourself, and that's why we love the PI Expert Secrets, because it hits the fast forward button. It's like you basically get to learn everything that Chris knows about PI, documentation, case management, and marketing, and you can just learn all of that, absorb it before you start doing all of this outreach. Now you're an expert. Now the first meeting, they're just like, wow, like that makes a lot of sense.
They get it.
You get it. Let me send you a case. You knock that one out of the park. Now they're just like, if you increase the value of cases on a consistent basis, they're going to send you more.
Right. And
so marketing begets more marketing. Like you're going to,
100%.
one case can turn into 100 cases if the one case is done the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, you have a patient that sings your praises, and then you have an attorney that's really happy with the legal outcomes, financial outcomes, settlement outcomes. That's it.
Yeah.
Home run.
Because if you're ruining cases, they just can't risk it.
Do you know how much it
they
costs?
don't care how much you like the Cowboys.
No, like it costs so much for some of these. Some do word of mouth, but most of them are spending a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Cost per acquisition per client. I mean, billboards aren't cheap. Commercials aren't cheap. Radio isn't cheap, and that's how a lot of them are advertising.
Yeah. Anything in terms of looking for unattached cases that you think is worth the investment? I just feel like a lot of the marketing, either when you're on the attention side, if you're on like Facebook, Instagram, there's so few people that have gotten into accidents, and they're always changing, that it's just, unless you're going to go all in with PI marketing and you're just going to kind of be everywhere like the attorneys do, it's tough to like really see a great ROI from that.
I agree.
And then on the intention side, the Google and the YouTubes, you're just competing against attorneys for these keywords, and it can be
They'll destroy you
I
financially.
mean, like in Chicago, I can't even imagine how much the cost per click is.
60 something, I believe, at the moment.
for a click.
For a click.
Not for like a guaranteed
Some are
patient.
over, and it's actually one of the highest priced keywords in the country.
Yeah. So anyway,
in a major city.
Like, is there really any, like, if I've got a budget of $1,000 a month, is there anything I should be focused on, or should I just be trying to do boots on the ground stuff?
I would do boots on the ground stuff. I think some of the digital platforms are going to be fantastic, but as far as when it comes to paid, I just think you're casting such a wide net for such a little return.
Yeah.
You know, you get one case that's unrepresented, great. Okay, so now maybe they want representation, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
You're getting them to an attorney. It's just not how you're going to build like a long-term practice, and it's just not the lead domino you should be focusing on.
And we do talk about the marketing in the course of like what you can do.
Oh, yeah.
I just try to
we
think
get
of
them
like
a lot.
Yeah, like because you're
that's not the
doing
biggest
it,
focus.
but it's like if you've got a budget of $1,000 or less, I'd rather see you spending that $1,000 on like lunch and coffee.
Okay, so let's
and drinks
backtrack.
and,
That's exactly what we did in the
Yeah.
beginning when we talked about like 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, building this thing from the start.
Yeah.
It was all about doubling down on the things that worked in those lead dominoes, not focusing on the unattached cases.
Awesome. All right, so PI Expert Secrets. After this podcast, we're finishing the third video in the masterclass, which is going to be available very soon. By the time this podcast, we'll use this podcast coming out as like to make sure that it gets done by then. So if they want to get the masterclass, where should they go?
They should. Where are they going?
PIExpertsecrets.com.
Oh.
Yeah. So go to PIExpertsecrets.com. You can opt in for the masterclass. We're going to be launching the course February 1st. That'll get you onto the wait list. There's only 100 spots available for the first class to go through. We're going to be doing tiered pricing, so the sooner you sign up for the program, the cheaper the price will be, and it'll start to go up. But the masterclass, like, you gave a ton of value in those first two videos, and I'm sure you will in this third one.
Absolutely.
So even just the masterclass, which is free, you can opt in for that. You can start that process, but just knowing, like, having helped, arrange all the information and getting everything together and like just brainstorming all of it and just like pulling that information or helping to pull that information out of your head. Man, you and your partner also know a ton about, like, just more than I ever have met anyone. Like, I just never met anybody that knows more about it. And so I'm pumped about this course because I think it's going to help a lot of people, and it's going to help them do it the right way.
Right.
Like, it's not like there's no short
hard work.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Building the foundation for success for a long time,
Right.
not just here's some tactic.
Not some sugar high.
Exactly. Right.
I agree.
So, anything you want to add to that?
No, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm excited about the course. I feel like it's a very misunderstood space, and I'm really hoping to bring clarity and value to everybody out there.
Awesome. So if you want to do the masterclass, go to PIExpertsecrets.com, opt in there. If you're interested in the course, I think on the website we'll have a call to action where you can schedule a call with Chris and just talk a little bit more about your individual needs and concerns, and he can tell you more about the course in particular. But just tons of value. If you're looking to learn more about PI, I don't think there's another course out there that's better than this. So I appreciate having you on. PIExpertsecrets.com. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
All right.
Just because this episode is over doesn't mean you can't continue your path to $1 million practice. We've created Chiropractic's most full-service marketing agency at Leverage Media to help you reach $1 million a year fast and continue to grow. You can get a free strategy session with me absolutely free right now. To get started, go to getmemorenewpatients.com. Once again, go to getmemorenewpatients.com, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Path to $1 Million podcast.